Hey there, my loves. Welcome back to CPTV. So, guess what, y'all? I saved the best for last because today we are all talking about love.
Nice.
Yes, love. She-bosses want love too, y'all. It's true. But navigating love as or with a she-boss can be tricky because what I know from being a female entrepreneur, working with female entrepreneurs, and having really good friends and colleagues who are female entrepreneurs, navigating relationships ain't always easy as a she-boss. From finding a good man to keeping a good man, it gets complicated. Or if you are the one with or trying to be with a she-boss, it can be tricky. Trust me, I get it. My husband and I have been together for nearly 20 years. But before him, let's just say I wasn't the greatest at relationships. And I can accept some fault in some of the horrific breakups that I have taken place in my life. But for the last 20 years, I have managed to navigate it pretty well. And not alone, of course, but with my husband, who has been on this entrepreneurial journey, guys, with me the entire ride.
What?
So I wouldn't be able to do this episode justice if we couldn't hear from someone who has some great tips for those of you out there who are in love with a she-boss.
You serious?
And then, of course, I have some advice for the she-bosses out there. How should you do it? So I've got a very special guest today, my husband, Rico. And we are going to give you a peek inside of a pretty juicy conversation about the top 5 situations that we navigate through all of the time as an entrepreneurial couple. So, Mr. Perez, welcome to CPTV. How are you today?
I'm good. It's a little weird on this side of the camera.
It is. I want to say thank you for coming on. I know that, video isn't necessarily your thing, but I thought it was really important for today's episode because my goal is to really help the she-bosses out there, but also those who love the she-bosses really navigate through what can really be a tough relationship from time to time. I mean, entrepreneurs come with certain personality traits and certain habits that can create stress on those that love them. And we also have certain expectations that are sometimes tricky to navigate through. So I thought no better person would be able to provide support to the she-bosses, but also to those who love the she-bosses than my boo, because you have been with a she-boss for nearly 20 years. So I want to start by kind of going back to the beginning when I was still doing the side hustle thing and just kind of hustling on the side with various businesses. And you were a part of all that when we were friends and then when we started dating. And I think that you saw something that not a lot of people really get to see. When I'm in a full-time corporate role, and my dream and my vision is to ultimately leave that role. But I mean, coming to the table when you still had a choice, because now you ain't got no choice,
No, I'm stuck, yeah.
You stuck now. But when you had a choice to walk away, what were some of the things that really you thought, this might make me walk away, and this is why I'm going to stay?
Wow, that's a loaded question. The biggest thing is the timepiece and having to share you. Was not used to that. Didn't know what I was getting myself into, so that was difficult in the beginning.
So that's kind of that first thing, because I told everybody that we were going to talk about the top 5 things that we've dealt with, that we continually deal with, and I had to pick out 5. I mean, obviously there's been more than 5, but the ones that keep kind of coming back up, and we have to navigate through them as a couple, and time is really that first one. So the time, I think, has been a sticking point in the beginning, and then also in my responsibilities in our life and in our relationship and in our household. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the time. From a she-boss perspective, I think I'll follow up. Like, to give my she-bosses some tips, I'll follow up after you say what you're going to say. Giving the advice first of all, telling us how you felt and how you feel about the whole time thing when it comes to entrepreneurs, and also the advice that you would give to those who are trying to love she bosses, because you really do have to come to some really pretty big conclusions when it comes to that time. Mainly the fact that there's very little of it, and we tend to be workaholics and work a lot. So how'd that work out for you?
Obviously good. It's 20 years later. In the beginning, it was rough. Now I think it's a piece of cake. So having the experience, I would probably say having patience with one another. When I don't see you as much, that causes problems.
I don't know.
So I think it causes problems for both of us. So having patience, and then I can't believe I'm going to say this, communication.
Approved.
Why can't you believe you're going to say that?
Because I've been told that I don't communicate the best unless I've been drinking.
Right, it's true. But I mean, I remember in the beginning me just assuming that you just understood, that you would just get it, especially when I was pulling 60, 80-hour work weeks, and I was like working from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. day after day after day. Yeah. And I had to check myself, as well, because I just assumed that you would just get it. I mean, you're the one that told me to quit my full-time gig and encouraged me to start a business. And we'll talk about why you did that, because I'm interested to know that as well. But I just thought he told me to do this. He knew what he was up against, so I don't need to necessarily communicate it, because as women, ladies, you know what we do. We assume. We are deep. They are not as deep. We assume that they know what's on our mind, that they are going to understand what we are thinking, and we oftentimes don't speak about it, and then all of a sudden we get pissed off when they didn't read our mind. So let me be the first to tell you one thing I have learned about men, because I actually studied this in college, is that men do not think that way. They are not going to dig real deep and try to read between the lines and figure out what's on our brain. If you want them to know what's on your brain, you've got to say it.
Men, we don't know what we did.
And I think we learned that early on, especially when it came to the time, because some of our biggest fights were related to my work ethic.
We didn't learn it that early on. We went through a good period of time there, maybe the first 4 years. Because as men, what we do is we don't necessarily talk about our feelings all the time. So, we just, hey, I'm tough, I can deal with it, no big deal, she's gone. But over a period of time, that gets to a point like, all right, this is a bit much.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I still needed to have that time accounted for, because we had a family. So your job was to take care of our family and our household, and my job was to take care of our business. Mm-hmm. And so, but I think there were still some basic expectations that I was still supposed to fulfill on the home front.
Absolutely.
With limited time, right?
Absolutely.
And so I began to feel completely taken for granted, completely overwhelmed, because I was busting my ass in our business, and then I would also come home and still do like the household stuff.
Absolutely.
Because I'm also the planner there, right? So eventually we did have to have like kind of that come to Jesus, that intervention, where you laid out some things that you had expecting from me with regards to time. And then I also laid out some duties that I needed us to divide up in order for me to not shrivel up and die and like go into a complete exhaustive, burnout coma.
Sure.
So that is where my divide up the duties checklist came into play. Remember the duties checklist?
I do.
We're laughing about it, guys, but I'm going to give you access to this divide up the duties checklist. You can download it. And it was my checklist that I presented to my husband with all of the tasks personally that I had to take care of still, even though I was working like 12, 14-hour days. And we had to sit down and divide up what those duties were and really be very clear on what I needed him to take off of my plate, because I began to resent him. Like, seriously. And I knew that if I didn't speak up, he wasn't going to just get it. And I had to say, I need you to do this stuff, and we need to agree upon it. So download the Divide Up Your Duties checklist. The link to it will be in the comments. Make sure you grab it. And while you're down there, say, hey, what's up to me and Rico. And ask us any questions that you have. We'll try to log in even afterwards and make sure we answer your questions. But Download that duties checklist, ladies, because if you are still full-time at home and full-time in your business and you're starting to feel like you're ready to kill somebody, you have to speak up to your spouse, your significant other, and say, here's all the stuff that I do. I need you to do this too. So the duties checklist is underneath here. There's also another video that I did on the duties checklist. So I'm going to link to that as well on how to get your family support. But how did you feel about that checklist?
I still think it's a little crazy, but that's just me. I wasn't just sitting at home relaxing, You
weren't.
Well,
To
I
me,
was working, or I was in school most of the time.
yes, and we agreed that it was that you were going to be like the primary parent, in that role.
No doubt.
Was that hard for you to navigate through as a man?
Not at all.
Because traditionally, that's supposed to be our jobs,
Yeah.
right? That's supposed to be our jobs. And but obviously, you saw something different in me. What made you decide to go full-fledged and be aggressive and trying to win me over, even though you knew that I had these entrepreneurial goals?
Personality, your personality.
my personality.
You had it, and you weren't using it, and I'm thinking she is missing a boat.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So we talked about time. The intervention that you and the kids had with me, I thought was significant in our transformation as a couple, right? You guys literally said, we need you to pick days where you are going to commit to not working late, because it had become an everyday thing. I was working every day except Saturday, right?
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. And I appreciated that intervention.
Yeah.
What were you feeling when I wasn't at home all the time?
Actually, the kids started the whole intervention.
Yeah.
It was their decision.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't say anything to you, or try not to say anything to you, but I heard it all day, all night.
Where's mom?
So, where's mom? What time is mom coming home?
Mm-hmm.
So it was the kids. I just kind of went with the flow, I guess.
You would take digs because that's your way.
Well, yeah, but
you would say little things.
90% of the time, in my eyes, 90% of the time, you'll probably say it was a lot less than that.
50% of the time.
I'm just doing my thing. I'm a man. I can handle it. And I can deal with it.
Yeah.
And it took its toll. But the kids came up with the intervention. The kids wanted to make sure that you were home more, and I felt bad when they kept telling me that. So it was time to do something different.
Okay, so we navigated the time thing. And I mean, what would be one piece of advice that you would like to leave with those who are in love with She Bosses about dealing with the time that they're not going to necessarily have with their aspiring entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think you just said it. Instead of taking digs, there's better ways you could go about it. In other words, instead of making a smart comment, I could say, I miss you, or I want to spend some time with you. You haven't been around. Not, well, you're not going to be home anyway, so we'll figure something else out.
You were very, very good at communicating it properly, because had you come at me with my personality and most She Bosses personalities with some crazy order of some kind, I'd have been like, okay, I'm going to show you how much work I can really do.
Sometimes orders are good for you.
Sometimes orders are good. We're going to get to that. It's true. But I appreciate your way. You really know how to navigate my personality very well, and so I
Definitely.
appreciate that. And to all the She Bosses, my advice would be, you've got to have balance, honey. You cannot expect anybody who's trying to love you to be able to do that without you dedicating and committing yourself to spending time with them. So one of the things that I did was I would communicate to my family, these are the 3 nights that every week I know I'm going to work late. These are the 2 that I know I'll be home. And so, and those 3 nights I could work as late as I wanted to, and nobody would bug me and nobody would look for me. But the other 2, I had to be home. I had to stay committed to that. So find that balance, and it would help your relationship immensely. So let's talk about the second category that I think is a big deal for most entrepreneurs. And sometimes in the beginning, especially, it was a big deal for us, but negativity. And I shouldn't probably call it negativity. I should call it realism, right? Realism, because entrepreneurs, She Bosses, are generally big visionaries. We are always have these great ideas, these grandiose ideas. We're looking out 10 years from now, and we want everything. And when we verbalize that to the people that we love, especially in a relationship, my expectation was always going to be that you were going to be like, yes, do it. You're going to be great. Yeah. And then you started like keeping it real with me and being a realist. I almost felt like it was negative. And at one point I was like, is this the right person for me to be with? Is he going to support me? And then I had to realize that it wasn't about you not supporting me. It was about you making sure that I was thinking through all of the opportunities that prompted me to be able to plan more appropriately. And remember that my big vision wasn't just about me.
Exactly.
It was also about you. Which was hard because entrepreneurs, our personalities are typically very independent. And so to have to be like, this isn't going to do with you, was a trip for me, especially once we transitioned from just dating to being married. It was a big deal. So what would you say about the negativity or the glass half, the realism?
Well, back it up.
Being a realist.
It was a big deal. In fact, it's one of the reasons we ended up getting married is I saw that you were going to make the switch. I gave you that advice to make the switch.
You did.
I didn't know what that came with, but yeah.
You didn't know. Wait.
No.
Expound on that. You didn't know what came with.
Pushing you towards to be more entrepreneurial.
To be a full-time entrepreneur.
Yeah, I had no idea the time constraints on our relationship that was going to create, but
but it was your fault.
it was my fault.
Okay.
It was my fault. And so let's change it from negativity too. I don't like that word. You keep saying negativity.
You're right.
But it's one thing to have a million dreams. That's awesome. I've never told you no from not one of your crazy.
You have never
out of the blue
told me
in
no.
the space ideas that you come
Never.
up with, right?
Never.
But I will tell you if it's not adding up. You know,
Yes.
I'm like, okay, that sounds great. It's fabulous. We can do this, but.
Right.
And every time I would say but, you would say, you're being negative or you're messing up my energy. And I'm thinking, no.
You messing up my energy.
No, it's just.
I say that a lot, guys. I say that a lot.
We have to be realistic in our goals. And I think that's for any entrepreneur. Not saying you can't reach for the stars, but, typically it doesn't happen overnight. And, you have to plot the course. So, yeah, my real talks with you were just saying, all right, let's really look at this.
And it was also the fear of the unknown.
Sure.
Because for you, me knowing you the way that I do, is that you don't do decisions without thorough investigation, without thorough analysis. And so for me, I'm usually here's an idea. Let's try it. Let's do it now. Let's do it yesterday. And I know that would create anxiety for you
Absolutely.
to a certain degree. So
I'm a brainstormer.
You
I need
are.
to think about it. I need to understand it. I need to have a reason. I need to have the whole thing mapped out. And you're just the opposite. You would just say, we're going to do it. And I'm thinking,
yes, that is your strength for sure. And I think that in this perspective, appreciated that in you, because had you been a negative person or a glass half empty person, I would have never chosen you. I had been in relationships previously where I was very cautious, because I naturally am very cautious about sharing. And I was naturally cautious about sharing, but when I did, I would pick up on, negativity or just disbelief in my ability to do it, or, the whole like archaic belief that you're supposed to work somewhere forever and ever, or you shouldn't do that, or you can't do it. And so I did, decide ultimately in that partner that I was going to embark upon this entrepreneurial journey with, they had to be someone who's going to be supportive and push me in the right direction. And I know that I say negativity, but it can be also termed as realism. And I think that you really did open up my eyes to the difference between the two.
Definitely.
Yeah, because was there ever a time where I came up with something or some grand Cheryl idea and you were just like, this shit is not going to work?
Actually, probably no. I mean, you've done some crazy, but no, never did I say, that's just ridiculous. No, I was just kind of like, well, your passion and your plan and your process made me think, all right, we can do this shit. So, no.
Are you saying I'm persuasive?
Not really. You're very persuasive. But I will stop you and say, well, this part doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And that's the realist part for me. Like, we have to be realistic going into this. And that used to drive you a little crazy, but
It did.
It's not negative. It's
It
just
still does sometimes.
But it's just saying, okay, so what if I would have set those expectations that, overnight this was just going to go boom, and then when it didn't, then what happens?
Yeah.
So the realist part of me was like, okay, this is a good idea, but it might not generate as quick as she thinks it will.
Yeah.
So I just kind of walk you through that or kind of slow you down with that. And that used to drive you crazy.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
But I also knew and interpreted it as you still being supportive, because never before have you, and I get job offers. I mean, I still to this day get job offers all the time.
I know.
And never before did you say, get a real job, accept that job offer. Now you wouldn't tell me that anyway because of the, the success and the lifestyle. But, now you're like, they can't afford you, but, you were never not supportive. I think had you ever told me it wasn't going to work, or you can't do that, or it's not achievable, or you're a black woman, or whatever it is, it would have stopped our relationship instantly at that point. That's just that was a non-negotiable for me. And you passed with flying colors.
I knew that.
Oh, you knew that?
I knew it was a non-starter with you, so yeah, it was good.
Okay. So we've navigated through negativity, and we didn't really have that experience. I would probably say to a she-boss out there, if you are with someone who you feel is negative and not supportive of your business, it's going to be a problem.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
You've got to express, I feel like you're not being supportive, and really try to understand why they're saying what they're saying, because it could be to protect you. It could be to set the expectations and keep it real. But it could legitimately be coming from a place of being not supportive and then just not being on this journey with you. So I would definitely say communicate what you're feeling, get the proper interpretation, don't make assumptions, and then make your decisions about being with that person long term based upon how serious you are. Because I divorced someone because of negativity and not believing in my dream, and I've broken up with quite a few for not really truly seeing what I think you saw in me from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to give a little advice to the she-bosses out there.
She-bosses, or those who love the she-bosses?
She-bosses too.
Okay.
I think the important piece of it is to have a plan, have a process, know what you want to do. It's one thing to say, I'm gonna start this business, or I wanna create this, and then you don't have any idea on how to get there.
No clarity.
Yeah, and I think that's where the negativity would set in.
Yeah.
You always had, even as crazy as your ideas were, some of them, you had a plan typically to go along with it. So it was easy for me to say, okay.
And they made us money.
Absolutely. Well, some of them in the beginning were kind of crazy.
Yeah.
They made us money too.
They
you're
made
right,
us money. We've traveled the way. Come on.
But the biggest goal is, the biggest thing I'm trying to get out is have a plan,
Yeah.
and then you'll get that buy-in.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's talk about, situation number 3, decision-making and control. Yes, well, you don't think it's a big deal, but it is a very big deal. And I think that from my perspective, being a she-boss, because I am female, traditionally, we aren't supposed to be the primary lead. We're not supposed to take the lead in our lives. And I think I have to start out by saying, I think the assumption when you're a she-boss, when you are an entrepreneur, your personality is that you're going to be assertive, and you want to be in control, you want to make all the decisions, and so that's kind of your personality, that's what you do. And it can be very difficult for a woman in that position to navigate through a relationship, because we're not supposed to be in that role traditionally. I mean, according to the Bible, according to society, according to tradition. And I want to be the first to clarify that is an assumption that I think is a myth. I do not believe that all she-bosses, whether you're the CEO and you make the decisions at work, want to be in that role all the time. I know for me personally, I am exhausted at the end of a day or week or month of constantly, yes, I make decisions all day long. I'm in control of situations all day long. But when I get home, I like to step back into that passive role and let my man take the lead. And so it was very important for me to find an alpha male who could accept that and balance that. I mean, and ours is different because we work together too. So that's a whole nother video, right? It's a whole nother video.
That's a whole different video.
If you guys want to see Rico and I do an interview about what it's like to work with your significant other or spouse, please leave that down in the comments below. We will be happy, if I can get him to get back on camera again, to run through that with you, because that's a whole different dynamic about decision making and telling people what to do. We navigate that amazing as well because we've worked together in our businesses.
It's not always
forever.
easy though.
It's not. We get into some fights for it. But I think that the decision making and control was critical for me because I don't want to be in control all the time. And I needed to be with someone who was willing and able to, step up and say, I'm leading this, I'm making this decision, I'm in control of this, and let it go. And so that I could be in control when it came to business and work, but that I could step back and be more traditional, like I enjoy being at home. And so I think that we've navigated that really well. What was your interpretation, knowing me and knowing my personality, which you brought up a couple of times since we've been talking, about, because I have a strong personality, right? Strong personality. So how do you navigate it? I mean, as the lover of a she-boss, how do you navigate through that decision making and control?
4 words: happy wife, happy life. That's a saying that people heard all the time, and it's 99% of the time it's probably true. There's no struggle there. I mean, you guys care far more than guys typically care. You get deep.
We're from Mars.
You're complicated.
No, we're from Venus. You're from Mars.
I don't know where y'all from, but it's definitely a different planet from us. And you guys really care about a lot of things that we, more easygoing. Most guys are more laid back, and I can be talking to some of my buddies, and I mention something to them, and they'll be like, "Man, women are crazy."
Like making the bed.
And you get so hung up on that.
It has to be made.
So I was in the military. I had to make a bed I could bounce a quarter off of. So that's the last thing I want to do is make another bed.
I want the quarter bed, bouncing bed. I would like for us to focus on that goal. Can we make the bed so you can bounce a quarter?
Have I not been lately?
You've been doing a great job
See?
with the bed.
And that's because happy wife, happy life. It really does not matter to me.
Insane.
The things that bug you. So that type of control I don't have a problem with. Decision making, that's a whole different ball game. If I ask you where you want to go out to eat, you say you pick it. I want you to take charge of it. I can name 3 different restaurants that you're gonna find a problem with. And I'm like, why did you give me the choice? Just go ahead and pick it, because I really don't care.
But I think that you do an amazing job at picking up on my cues and knowing when to really be in that role, because you also know that I find the inability for you to make decisions unattractive. Like, it is a fundamental for me. I love you being the leader of our household.
Sure.
That is what I ultimately want. And you protecting me and taking care of me and making me feel safe. And I can still have a strong personality and still be in that role. And I appreciate that about us and you. Because I have been in relationships where I could walk all over the person. I was the alpha in the relationship, and I eventually lost respect. And when I lose respect, I find you extremely unsexy, and then it is just kind of a horrible downhill spiral from there.
Don't worry.
If I can't respect you, I can't do anything.
That'll
with
never
you or
happen
for
here.
you. I know,
Ever.
and I appreciate that.
And you're right. Sometimes I have to tell you when, all right, enough.
Yes, you do.
Yeah,
you do. And I think that we have a good balance, right? I mean, I think that
Definitely.
we let the other person lead in areas that they're strong in. So like my skill sets and my strengths surround a certain thing, and in those situations, you're like, babe, this is really your thing. What do you think? And your confidence and your self-awareness and your awareness of me enables you to make that decision and make that call. And it also doesn't emasculate you, which I think is important, because I've been with men who become completely emasculated with just even the idea of asking me to make a decision on something, even when they know that I know more about the particular topic.
That's ridiculous. I mean, if you know about the topic and I don't really have a thought on it, or any experience on it, I'd be stupid to say we're gonna do it my way.
Right.
That's just kind of stupid.
And vice versa.
Yeah. So it works out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that in the decision making and control, if I had to leave one word of wisdom for the she bosses out there, it would be, don't be afraid to let the person who's trying to love you or who's in love with you lead. Because it's going to take some stress off of you. You need a break. You deserve a break from decision making and control and constantly leading. Pick your lane. It's okay to lead when you need to, and it's okay to let go of that when you need to. Trust me, it's refreshing. It is sexy. It is all of those good things. And you really do have to understand that your personality is strong. So you've got to pick a person that can handle that, but that can also put you in your place when you need to be put in your place. Because I think that's sexy, you know, when you tell me to shut up and sit down.
I'm sexy and I know it.
Not when I'm doing it typically, but shortly after.
Shortly
I
thereafter.
can see it.
Maybe not in the moment. I'm like, oh, okay, you done motivated me to do the opposite. But, you know, I think that's important. And what advice would you leave for either the she bosses or those who love the she bosses?
I would say that for those that love the she bosses, check your ego at the door. You know, I mean, I think it's not a competition. It's a relationship. So, you know, why should I feel a certain way about you knowing more or having a say on something? This is a relationship. It's not a competition.
Yes.
So that's the number one thing, is don't be in competition, you know.
I love that. I love that you just said that. That just, you know, took your sexy up some additional notches.
Maybe we should do more of these videos.
Maybe we should do one of these interviews.
Yeah, boy.
Okay, so let's talk about category number 4 that we have dealt with, that we still deal with, that we've struggled with in the past, and that is jealousy. Jealousy, right? I mean, jealousy comes into play, and it's a natural thing because I'm a woman, and you oftentimes are always thinking from a man's perspective.
Definitely.
You have convinced yourself, and you try to convince me that you know what men are thinking, and you know, even if I think it's platonic or I think it's friendly, that's not usually where their heads are. And so, and I am at a lot of events, and I have wine, and I have dinner meetings, and I am, you know, around men a lot because it's a male-dominated world out there in business. And I might get phone calls. I mean, all of those things. And you are possessive. You are possessive, and you are territorial. I am too. I have to deal with it a lot less because, you know, I'm not in that position. And I think if I was, I would probably have a more difficult time dealing with it than you do.
You definitely would.
Than you do. So how do you navigate through it?
It wasn't easy in the beginning because I am territorial. I'm very jealous by nature. So I would just pee on your underwear before you go out.
Stop it. Get some help.
That's a joke. That's a joke. I never did that.
Yeah, I remember.
you.
You did. One morning I was going to a board meeting and you was like, they sniffing. Come here so I can pee on you.
What? What the
I'm like, what? He's like, come on so I can pee on you. I mean, you were joking. And
It was a joke.
Yes,
but no, yeah, I'm very territorial. And that's a tough thing to deal with. Not just in business, in just everyday life. If you're around a bunch of guys just normally, and I'm not spending time with you, if you're spending, 60 hours at work, and some of those work functions are events that you're out, yeah, absolutely. I want to know who you're around. I'd be stupid not to ask those questions.
Yeah.
And you're right. I do know how guys think.
So, but how do you get? I mean, every once in a while you would lose it and be like, "This is ridiculous. I don't like it."
Sure.
But most of the time, it would only come through maybe in you trying to reach me or communicating. I mean, how do you keep it? Because I think that from a she-boss perspective, we have to make sure that we are aware of the fact that it is going to exist. It is going to happen, and it's okay for you to be in that space. I'm not going to sit back and say, he don't trust me or he had no reason to be jealous. You have every reason to feel that way sometimes. 100% every reason. And so I'm not judging you because of those feelings. I'm taking those feelings into consideration, and I'm doing everything I can to reassure you.
Yeah.
If I'm at an event, you call, I know that you're in a space, you must be like, where the hell is she? Who the hell is she with?
Well,
so I know I have to answer.
You're only in that space because I tell you.
Yes.
I verbalized that, like,
I know I got to answer. I know I got to respond to
Absolutely.
a text message. I know that as soon as I get to the car, I'm going to call you just to reassure you I'm on my way home to you. And I know that if you're having those moments, that it's important for me to reassure you that I am yours. I love you. I am not listening to the noise, and nobody out there can make me feel like you do. So I know that I've got to step up my reassurance game instead of doing what I know a lot of women and she bosses will do and say, I ain't got time for no man who got insecurity. I'm out here, I'm doing my thing. It's like, how come he can't have moments of insecurity when I know I have moments of insecurity.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take away my confidence level in myself. It's just, it is what it is.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
And you're out there in the public, you got to navigate through it.
So how I deal with it, I address it. I say something to you.
But how do you what do you do? What do you say to yourself?
I don't say anything to myself. I say it to you. Once I get it out to you and you know where I stand, I'm good to go.
But you have to be talking yourself down from certain ledges. I know I would probably be on the edge of something if you were out and I called you and you sounded like you had been drinking. It was 11 o'clock at night. I could hear 4 or 5 women around you. I would be like, okay, I'm about to call my girls and we're gonna get in my car and we're about to go check things out. So I would have to talk myself off of that ledge.
No, guys don't typically work that way, but
Oh, okay.
if I
It's a
got
Mars
to
thing,
the
Venus
point
thing.
where it's bugging me like that, I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna say something on the spot, and it is what it is.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
Okay. All right. So I appreciate that. So my advice for she bosses is if the person that you're in a relationship with is having a moment of jealousy because of what you're doing, understand that that's legit and it is your job to make them feel better and not to judge them because of it, right? Because it'll never work at that point. It's ridiculous to believe that there aren't going to be moments where the person that you're in a relationship with isn't going to have questions. It's ridiculous to believe that because of the situations that we're in and the fact that we're women.
Definitely.
Right? And what would your advice be?
When you feel a certain way, say something. And that's just the best way to approach it. And, if I sit and let it fester and don't say anything, it's going to manifest itself anyway.
It's back to the 5 languages.
Exactly.
Right? Don't forget to check that link out. I'm going to link to my book that I love, the 5 languages of love that we both use and understand each other's love languages because it's really important. You keep talking about communication. I think that our communication has evolved so significantly because we really, truly make it a focus and a point to understand the other person.
Definitely.
And to adjust our own behavior. So check out that link as well. We'll put it in the description and also in the comments. So let's talk about the last one. And this is the biggest one. I mean, some people might say jealousy is the biggest one, but I would say the 5th category that we navigate through as an entrepreneurial couple is money. Money, right? We have come so far. In the very beginning, though, we were broke as hell. I mean,
yeah.
broke. When I was starting this business, or our business, actually, the one that we sold, we were broke as hell. And I was like shocked that you were still in it with me and still helping me. And I was also working crazy and not making any money. You were, in my mind, a saint at that point. What were you saying to yourself?
Well, how
did I make it?
I kind of put you in that position. I pushed you into being an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And that started by me asking some personal questions almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
When you raised about $2 million for an organization, and it was a nonprofit. And I didn't really understand how that worked back then. So after the event was over, I felt like me and you were close enough. I'd already lent you money to pay your car note a couple times. And so I figured I can ask this personal question. I asked you, so what's your cutoff of this 2%? I was trying to figure out
how much money I was
how much you were going to make off of
that. Because I'm big on not talking about how much money I make.
Right, and I don't typically ask, but I
Right.
was real curious about this one. And when you told me nothing, I get paid my regular salary, and if I'm lucky, I'll get a 2 or 3% raise. And I'm like, what?
Emotional damage.
I remember that.
And I asked you, why the hell do you do nonprofit?
You were adamant. You were like, you are wasting.
Do you remember the answer you gave me when I asked you why you did nonprofit?
Yes, because I want to change the world. I want to impact people.
And what did I tell you?
you can make money. You can volunteer to change the world and impact people. You need a for-profit sales job, girl, because you got it.
So I pushed you into that role. So I was kind of expecting a bumpy ride. I don't think I was expecting to be as turbulent as it was, but yeah, so I never really argued about the money because you always had a plan in place that made me feel like, all right, we'll get there.
Yeah.
There's a process to it.
And you used to always tell me, I see your potential.
Absolutely.
I watch you and I know what you can do. And I think that helped you. Did it help you?
Oh, hell yeah.
Because I was sure that you were gonna, I was gonna come home from work when the day that the car got my car got repossessed. I thought for sure I was gonna call you because I remember calling you and completely crying, and you were at work, and I thought for sure you were gonna move out.
No, you were pregnant. You were pregnant.
But still, I mean, I can't say that from a woman's perspective, that isn't a move that some women would make. I mean, from a she boss's perspective, and for me specifically, when it comes to money, I've always felt and believed that I was going to make more money than whoever it was I was with. I just needed to make sure I found someone who was okay in that space, because for men, that can be a very big deal. It can be completely emasculating. I've been in relationships before where I've made more money than who I'm with, and it does not work out well because the idea of it was just too much. And I have certain values in my love languages that I look for in men, and I was looking for specifically in my partner, my long-term partner, and money making was not one of them. I don't care. You could be not make any money at all, because I'm gonna make enough money to support all of us, plus some.
Keep it coming.
Yes, I got you. My values are a little different, but I mean, you can't be lazy and not have the ability to make money, because that's not sexy either. But I didn't need somebody who was making hundreds of thousands of dollars. I wasn't choosing that person based upon that, because I was always confident in myself. So I think that it was important for us to have those conversations, and for you to be in that space for me to know that it was not going to emasculate you. And I remember asking you that question. We were no longer friends. We had already started dating, and I was let me make sure he's got my list, and I said, how comfortable would you be, being with someone long term who make more money than you?
I told you, go ahead and retire me before 50.
You did. You wanted to golf all day.
I was comfortable in that space. I mean, I knew the potential that you had, and I'm confident in what I can do. You can make money anywhere. Mm-hmm. But I felt like the best opportunity is for us to start our own businesses, and with your brain and your attitude and your personality, I said, this is going to be the way we make it.
One of the things I think was important for me to recognize too was, as a she boss, even though you were a stay-at-home dad, and I was primarily funneling money into our account, it needed to be ours, sure, no matter what, because I was still with an alpha man. And I also knew that despite the fact that me making more money than you might not emasculate you, if I was also trying to control that money and hold it over your head and all that kind of stuff, it wouldn't have worked.
No, we would have been done.
We would have been done, right? So I knew that it was important for me to make sure that even when we went out together, that you always paid the bill, that you always had, access to all of our money, that you I didn't question you when you bought something, or, whatever the case may be. It was, but in the beginning, I think that we were worried about that because we had been in relationships before where it was very separate. But I learned from those to know that money had to be ours no matter who was making it. Because if it was the other way around, I would expect it to be ours as well.
Well, we made that decision early on, too. We decided that all our money would be kept together. We kept all of our money in our same bank accounts. A lot of people think that's crazy.
Yes.
Only thing I had separate was my shoebox money.
Right.
That I still keep my little size shoebox money.
That you buy me stuff with it.
Absolutely. But you got to come up with that decision early. So money was never really an object on who was making it. It was our money.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that we navigated that one pretty well. Yeah. And now we don't have to worry about being so broke. So you love me even more?
Even more. You still got a lot of work. You still got a lot of work to do.
You're so damn shallow.
A lot of work to do.
But it's gonna always grow, right? We're gonna go from wanting to make 10 million to 100 million, always, right?
Absolutely.
I got you, boo. Always.
Good.
So, I mean, I want to wrap this up with what would be the biggest things that you want to leave those who are trying to love or are in love with a she boss? What's the biggest piece of advice?
Communication, definitely, and I wouldn't have said that 20 years ago.
I'm so proud of you.
And having patience. It doesn't happen overnight, and you're in it together, no matter who's the entrepreneur in the relationship.
My advice to the she bosses is choose wisely. I mean, honestly, you have to know that you don't want to be with someone who is negative or who is controlling or who, is emasculated easily by your success. Don't choose someone who gives you those red flags, because Rico was handpicked. Like you tell me all the time that I was handpicked. He was handpicked. I knew what my goals were, and I knew I needed somebody who was going to be good enough to fit in there. Also had that nice, vibe, a little hood and boardroom all mixed together, but really have that confidence and that alpha male confidence to be supportive enough to push me, but also be able to be humble enough to let me shine. So that's my advice. Stay in your lane, get it together, and focus on your partner. And being with a she boss will be the easiest thing you've ever done. Thank you for coming today.
You're welcome.
All right, guys, let's go over ahead and wrap this up. So you're in love, but you feel the one thing which could be a problem is it's as or with a female entrepreneur. Look, it can be easy to want to love a she boss for her drive, her determination, the relentless pursuit of her passion, her appetite for risk, and the wealth and power she can generate. But all of that comes with something. It comes with her need to have the utmost freedom, flexibility, and trust in a loving, supporting, and honest partner. It also comes with you needing to have the ability to be independent of her, have your own life going on, and be able to function with flexibility. You have to be secure in being alone at times when you want to be with her. Sounds like a lot, I know. But take the advice that my husband and I just gave you during that juicy, intimate conversation that we just let you in on, and embrace it, because I'm telling you, loving a she boss is an amazing ride, as long as you are ready and can hold on tight. Until next time, my loves, I will see you next Tuesday. Please be safe. Mwah! Bye-bye.